Let's just dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a question you might have been asking yourself lately. What exactly are therapy intensives? And more importantly, are they right for you? Because look, if you've been in therapy for a while, you probably already know that sometimes talking just isn't quite enough. So we're going to look at a format that's designed specifically to help you move past that intellectual insight and finally, heal the nervous system. We're going to explore what this approach actually is, how it works under the hood, and figure out if it might just be the right fit for your own healing journey.
Here's a quick look at where we're headed. We'll start by looking at the structural limits of that classic 50-minute therapy hour, figure out what a therapy intensive actually is, and then dive into the neurobiology of how your nervous system heals. After that, we'll compare solo versus couples work and wrap up with a framework to help you decide if this is your right next step.
Section 1, the 50-minute hour limit. So why do so many really high-functioning people eventually just hit a wall in traditional talk therapy? I mean, have you done years of therapy but still feel completely stuck? A lot of people can explain their childhood in incredible detail. They know exactly what their triggers are. They know what they quote-unquote should be doing differently. And you might understand your patterns perfectly on a purely intellectual level. But in the moments that actually matter, your body still reacts like the trauma is happening right now. And the source material points out this absolutely fascinating gap, the massive space between having insight and actually healing.
You might recognize some of these signals. Maybe anxiety or depression has just become this constant background noise in your life, or you constantly feel totally disconnected from your own body. You might function incredibly well on the outside, right? But underneath it all, you're chronically bracing, scanning the room, or just completely shutting down. You might even catch yourself asking, seriously, shouldn't I be over this by now? Well, the absolute most crucial takeaway here is that you're not doing therapy wrong. You literally haven't failed. You've simply outgrown the weekly format. Because honestly, there's really nothing worse than having a massive, life-changing emotional breakthrough right as your therapist glances at the clock and says, "Oh, looks like our time is up for today." We hear phrases like "name it to tame it" and think insight is the finish line. But the sources highlight that insight is really just the doorway. The actual heavy lifting happens in the nervous system, in the parts of you that just don't speak in sentences.
Section 2. What is a therapy intensive? Now, this approach offers a completely different kind of container for the work you've already started. Basically, a therapy intensive is a dedicated, uninterrupted clinical space. We're talking about a half day, a full day, or even several consecutive days, all blocked off just for you. This isn't just a slightly longer therapy session, it's a completely different way of working entirely. Think about it. If your system has spent years completely guarded and locked in survival mode, it's not going to just hand over all its trust just because a 50-minute session popped up on your calendar. An intensive is purposefully built to give your most guarded parts somewhere totally safe to just exhale, without you or your therapist having to constantly keep one eye on the clock.
Just think about the structural difference for a second. In your traditional weekly sessions, you usually spend, the first 15 minutes just catching up on how your week went? Then, right when the actual deep, messy material finally starts bubbling up, the session's over. You have to literally pack all that trauma or conflict right back up into a little box, which leaves a full week for your nervous system to reclose and put its defenses back up. But an intensive? It uses unbroken blocks of time. No weekly restarts. No packing it all back up. You actually get to follow the thread all the way down to the source. It's the fundamental difference between just treating the symptom of the week versus giving your body the unhurried time it actually desperately needs to metabolize the root of the issue.
Section 3, how the nervous system heals.
To really understand why this uninterrupted format works so incredibly well, we have to look at the specific, evidence-based tools therapists use to help your nervous system finally register safety. First up is IFS, or Internal Family Systems. This targets your protective parts, the part of you that totally shuts down or stays super busy just so it doesn't have to feel anything. Instead of fighting those reactions, IFS actually builds trust with them. Then there's EMDR. This uses bilateral stimulation to target unprocessed trauma. It literally helps your brain take a memory that feels like it's still happening right this second and file it away as something that happened in the past. Next, we have brain spotting, which is super fascinating. It targets trauma that's stored completely beneath language, following exactly where your body physically holds it, so you don't even need to narrate the story out loud. And finally, somatic integration ensures your nervous system actually physically registers the change. The whole intensive structure seamlessly weaves these polyvagal-informed modalities together simply because your protective systems absolutely need time to loosen their grip before the real reprocessing can even start.
Okay, so how does this actually play out in practice? Let's walk through a typical 3-day immersion journey. Day 1 is entirely focused on building trust with your protective parts using IFS. It's all about mapping out the landscape before any of the deep processing begins. Then, Day 2 is the heavy lifting. This is where you're processing with EMDR and brain spotting, but at a pace your body can actually handle. And Day 3 is crucial. It's the soft landing. It's totally dedicated to somatic integration, so your body actually settles into the deep work you just did. And what's amazing is, according to the source materials, research on this kind of massed trauma treatment shows that condensing this whole arc into a few consecutive days can often produce way faster, much more durable symptom reduction than months and months of standard care.
Section 4. Couples versus solo intensives.
Now, while intensives are obviously incredibly powerful for individual complex trauma, they're also highly adaptable for relationships that are stuck in those exhausting, repetitive conflict loops. There's this fantastic quote from marriage and family therapist Nancy Phung-Smith that sets the stage perfectly here. She says that the very dynamics that wound us are also the ones that can repair us when we're given the right conditions and enough time to actually meet what's underneath. For busy parents or working professionals, adding a weekly couples therapy session can honestly just feel like another chore on the to-do list. And worse, that 1 hour a week usually barely covers the latest argument about the dishes or who is picking up the kids, let alone the deeper emotional pattern. A couples intensive flips the script and uses the relationship itself as the healing mechanism.
So while solo intensives focus heavily on your individual history and complex trauma, couples intensives do something pretty remarkable. They use your recurring everyday fights as a literal doorway to your deeper shared wounds. They use specialized modalities like EMDR for couples and IFIO, which stands for Intimacy from the Inside Out. Basically, instead of just trying to give you better communication skills, you actually take turns doing your own deep internal work while your partner watches. And the true power here? It's that witnessing your partner do their own deep work without you getting defensive or trying to fix it for them shifts you from being opponents in a ring to being witnesses of each other's pain. That undivided witnessing actually becomes the ultimate relational repair. It's a real game changer.
Section 5. Is an intensive for you?
Okay, let's figure out if this approach is actually the right next step for your own personal healing journey. An intensive might be perfect for you if you've already been in ongoing weekly therapy for a few months and you have a very specific target in mind, like a specific past trauma or a major relationship rupture. You need to be stable and you already have some basic coping skills in your toolkit, but you just feel stalled. Because an intensive is really deep, fast-paced work, it's explicitly meant to be a powerful addition for high-functioning adults who are already on a healing path. It is absolutely not designed to be a starting point if you're brand new to therapy or if you're currently in an acute crisis and just need basic stabilization.
Well, I really hope this explainer has given you the clarity you need to decide if stepping out of that standard 50-minute hour is the key to finally letting your nervous system just exhale. Insight's an incredible start. Absolutely. But if your body is still keeping score, it might just be asking for more uninterrupted time to process it all. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought to chew on. Are you ready to stop treating the symptom of the week and finally reach the actual source?